Today we will learn about half angle formulas. So what I have done is I have derived the formulas over here. How we are getting those formulas. Just for the best interest of time, I will just explain some important things how I have derived. And if in case you wish to copy, you may copy in your notebook. But this will help you in the long run. To do this, we will start with the double angle formulas for cosine. Cosine of 2 theta. This is a formula. If you do not know, this is a formula as I'm explaining again. Cosine of 2 theta is equal to 1 minus 2 sine square theta. So what we have done over here is we have replaced theta by what? Alpha over 2. This symbol is what? This is called alpha. So theta will be represented by alpha. So I have alpha over 2 in place of theta equal to 1 minus 2. I have 1 minus 2 sine square, and theta is what? Alpha over 2. After this, what I have done over here is in this part over here, this 2 and 2 gets cancelled out. I'm left over with what? Cosine alpha is equal to 1 minus 2 sine square alpha over 2. After this, what I have done is I have done two steps over here. First step I have done is I have added 2 sine square alpha over 2 to both the sides. So when I do this, it looks like this to you. 2 sine square alpha over 2 and plus cosine alpha is equal to 1, because if I will add this one, 2 sine square alpha over 2, with this will be cancelled out. So after this, what I did, I subtracted my cosine alpha from both the sides. So this is your cosine of alpha. So this is your cosine of alpha. So this gets cancelled out. So your next step after this is what? It is your 2 sine square alpha over 2 is equal to 1 minus cosine of alpha. Now if you look at this step and if you look at this step, they both are same. After this, what I have done is I have divided both the sides by 2. So if I divide this by 2, now do keep in mind this is something else, and I divide this by 2, this 2 and 2 will be cancelled out. I will be left with the new step. Sine square alpha over 2 is equal to 1 minus cosine alpha over 2. At this place, what I have done is I have taken the radical on both the sides. So when I take the radical on both the sides, this side it will be plus minus and there will be a radical. This square and radical gets cancelled out. I have sine alpha over 2 is equal to plus minus radical of 1 minus cosine alpha over 2. So what we ended up with? We ended up with the formula. This is your half angle formula. Half angle formula for sine. Okay, this is for sine half angle formula. Sine alpha over 2 is alpha over 2. This is the angle, theta alpha is what? Angle, and divided by 2 it became a half angle, is equal to plus minus radical of 1 minus cosine alpha over 2. Now what it says, it will be plus when alpha over 2 is either in the first quadrant or in the second quadrant. Because if you remember, we have already learned about the quadrants. In first quadrant, this is your first quadrant, this is your second quadrant, this is your third quadrant, and this is your fourth quadrant. What happens in first quadrant? In first quadrant, all the trigonometric ratios are what? Are positive. Sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, and cotangent all are positive. But between 90 to 180 degree, only sine and cosecant are positive. So as you can see in this 0 to 90 degree first quadrant, sine is positive. That's why what it says, if sine is in first quadrant or the second quadrant, is positive. So we got this one. So let's proceed to the next page. So I will advise you go ahead and copy these notes in your binder. Now it says over here sine alpha over 2 is equal to negative 1 minus cosine alpha over 2 if alpha over 2, that's our angle, it is located in third or fourth quadrant. Because what happens over here is in your third and fourth quadrant, this is your third quadrant, sine and cosecant are what? They are negative. And similarly they are negative over here. That's why we are using the part which is negative 1 minus cosine alpha over 2. So over here, now do keep in mind, whenever question is given to you and you have to find sine alpha over 2 and it says alpha is in between third quadrant or alpha is in between 180 degree to 270 or 270 to 360 degree, then you will use the formula, this formula over here. All right. And then similarly I have derived for what? I have derived for cosine alpha over 2. So what is the formula for cosine alpha over 2? Plus minus 1 plus cosine alpha over 2. Only difference between these two formulas is with sine I have 1 minus cosine alpha over 2. Cosine I have 1 plus cosine alpha over 2. Do keep in mind, when you use the plus 1, we use plus 1, either the cosine theta is in alpha over 2, either it is in first quadrant or in the fourth quadrant. So this is telling us what? This is telling us that in the fourth quadrant, cosine and secant are what? Positive. So this means in fourth quadrant, your sine, tangent, cosecant, cotangent are negative over here. So this means over here, then tan and cot will be what? They will be positive. I'm sorry, yeah, this one was positive. Okay. So let's come back to the next screen over here. So these are your formulas, half angle formulas. Make sure to make a note of all of these formulas in your binder. So we will be using these formulas. These are called half angle formulas. Theta is your angle, so we divide by 2, it becomes half over 2. Okay, so this is cosine theta over 2, 1 plus cosine theta over 2, and you know how when we use plus and minus sign. Similarly, we have for tangent theta over 2 is what? Sine theta over 1 plus cosine theta, or it can be equal to 1 minus cosine theta over sine theta. So now let's look at our question number 1. Solve using the half angle formulas. Determine the exact value of sine 15 degree. So now as you all can see, what I have done is I have brought the formula sheet in front of you, so it becomes a lot more easier that which formula we are applying over here. Now first question comes in mind is this 15 degree. So does it come in what you called first quadrant or second quadrant? So if you are looking, paying attention over here, this is your first quadrant. First quadrant means what? 0 to 90 degree. So 15 degree comes in what? First quadrant. Okay. So what will happen is we will use which formula? We will use sine theta over 2 is equal to plus minus 1 plus. So I will use this formula. Using or use formula, since it is in first quadrant, the formula is sine theta over 2 is equal to plus. We are using the plus one. Okay, 1 minus cosine theta over 2. So this is the formula we will be using. So now next thing what we have to do is we have to substitute the value. Okay, now of this. So now I will write it over here, sine 15 over 2. Now think over here, can I write sine 15 over 2? Because if I will divide this, what is my answer? My answer is 7.5 degree. Is the question asking from us sine 7.5 degree? No. So this means what we will do is we will write it in such a way, okay, whenever we divide or something by, okay, so this means if I write it like this, sine 30 over 2. So what will happen? Sine 30 over 2 is what? Sine 30 over 2 will be what? It will be my 15 degrees. So I can do it. So it is telling you what it is telling you. It is telling you the value of theta is what? Is 30 degree. So when I will plug in this over here, 1 minus cosine of theta, what is my theta? Theta is my 30 degree divided by what? 2. So do keep in mind, in this case, we have been given 15 degree, but we cannot use 15 degree. If I write 15 degree at this place over here, it will become 15 over 2. That will give me 7.5. So what I have to do, I have to write in such a way when I divide by 2, I end up with the same answer. So I got this answer. Now after this, what I will do is I will plug in the values 1 minus. Now what is cosine 30? So if you will use unit circle, on your unit circle, cosine 30 is what? Radical 3 over 2. You can check it. Okay, radical 3 over 2. And it's your divided by everything by divided what? 2. Now first of all, what I will do is I will work out with the numerator over here. So when I'm solving the numerator part over here, now do you remember in the previous sections I have already taught you this is my scratch work, or I can say it is my useful work, or you can say scratch work. So what I'm doing, I'm working with the numerator part. 1 minus radical 3 over 2. Okay, I'll write 1 over here. Now how you subtract two fractions? First one is you draw one arrow over here. Okay, so it will be yours 1 times radical 3 is radical 3. Then you draw one arrow, there's a minus sign. 2 times 1 is 2. And then you draw one arrow over here, 1 times 2 is 2. So I end up with this one over here. Radical, okay, no, I messed up. I think I messed up over here. It should be other way. Because if you're paying attention, you can see this arrow is going over here. 2 times 1 is 2. And this gives you minus sign radical 3. So it should look like this. So I will come back and I will rewrite it. Okay, it will be divided by 2 over here. Now after this, what will happen over here after this? So now inside, if I will, okay, hold on, there is one more 2 over here. I think I forgot to do this one. So what is happening inside over here is, it looks like this: 2 minus radical 3 over 2 divided by what? 2. I'm doing the mathematical steps for you. All the mathematical steps I'm doing for you. Okay, so it will be yours divided by 1. So when you do this, 2 minus radical 3 over 2, it's your times and you flips over here. Alright, in the reciprocal form. So I'll multiply this. So my final answer, which I will be ending up with, 2 minus radical 3 over 4. So this is my answer for this problem. Okay, so that's my answer over here. Question number 2. Solve using the half angle formula. Use the half angle identity to find exact value of sine 112.5 degrees. So step number 1, you should ask this question from yourself. Does it come in first quadrant, second quadrant, third or fourth? So 112 degree, this is between 90 to 180 degree. So this means it comes in the second quadrant. And second quadrant, sine theta is what? Sine is positive in second quadrant. So if you have a look at this one over here, let me pull it up a little bit. Hmm. So if you look in this, in the second quadrant, this is second quadrant over here. Sine is positive between 90 to 180 degrees. So we will use which formula? We will use the plus formula, means this formula we will be using for this question. So let me write the formula over here. Formula used: sine theta over 2 is equal to plus. We are using the positive one, so I'm not writing this. 1 minus cosine theta over 2. So this is a formula which I will be using in this case over here. Alright, now as I mentioned earlier to you, I'll write over here sine. Now the question comes, what should I write in front of theta? Because this is your theta, but I cannot write this theta over here, because if I will write sine theta is 112.5 over 2, when I will divide this, it will not give me the same answer. So what I will need is, I need to write in the form, when I divide by 2, I should end up with this number. Usually what happens is, you take this number over here and you multiply by what? You multiply by 2. So whatever answer you end up with, that you will get. So when you multiply by 2, it is a 225 degree. So I'll write over here 225 degree. Now if you will pay attention, when I will divide this, it ends up with same number over here. So I can write it over here. Sine 112.5 degree is equal to this. And so this means, what is the value of theta? The value of theta over here is what? This one. So now I will be inserting this in my formula or substituting. So this is my cosine of 225 divided by 2. Okay, but I'm using which one? I'm using the positive one. So go ahead and do it the next step. 1 minus cosine of 225 degree. So what is my cosine 225 degree? Using the unit circle, it is my negative radical 2 over 2, and divided by what? 2. Now do keep in mind, everything what I am doing, everything is under one radical. So I have to erase this and I have to draw the radical again. Now my next step over here, so my next step will be like this: 1 plus, because this will change to a plus sign over here, radical 2 over 2 and divided by 2. Now what I will do is I will do my scratch work over here. So you remember I've been teaching you earlier also. This is a place for my scratch work. So it says 1 plus, this is a plus sign over here, sorry, this is a plus sign. 1 plus radical 2 over 2. So I will do 1 over here. Now I am adding two fractions. Step number 1, I can multiply like this, multiply and this. So in the denominator it says 1 times 2 is 2. Arrow going this side, this is 2 times 1 is 2 plus this gives me radical 2. So I ended up with this answer. So let's go over here. So my next step will look like this to you. 2 plus radical 2 over 2. Now do remember there is one more 2 in the denominator, which this one over here. This is one more 2 over here. After this, what will happen is 2 plus radical 2 over 2, and this is your division sign divided by 2. I will put it over here 1. So how we divide two fractions is you will change it to multiplication sign and you will write the reciprocal. So you multiply these with over here, this over here. So your final answer you left over with is 2 plus radical 2 divided by 4. So this is your answer for this problem. I will leave the answer over here. I don't want you to write the answer in fraction form. I'm sorry, in the decimal form. So leave the answer over here. Okay, now let's look at this question. Evaluate sine 75 degree. What I will do over here is just for the, something different because we have been doing sine problem. Instead of writing sine 75, I'm changing the question to cosine 75 degree. Okay, so we can use another formula also. Now it says evaluate cosine 75 degree using half angle formula. So step number 1, which I explained to you earlier, you have to find out whether this comes in the first quadrant, second, third, or fourth. So this comes in what? This comes in first quadrant. So this means what? The formula whichever we are using for the sign, it should be a positive formula. This means the formula which has a positive sign. Okay. So I will be using this formula over here. Formula used cosine theta over 2 is equal to plus 1 plus cosine theta over 2. That's the formula I'm using. So let's start working on this question over here. So I have to write over here cosine of 75 degree. Now just to make it easy, I will let you know if you want to write it like this, you can just write over here cosine of 150 degree. But if you have to divide this by 2, so it changes to half formula. When I divide this, what I end up with? I end up with my quotient over here. So this means what is the value of theta? The value of theta is what? This is the value of theta. Only this part. 150. So what I have to do is I have to just, I'm sorry, no negative sign, only plus. So what I have to do is I have to just plug in the value over here. 1 plus cosine of 150 degree divided by 2. That's it. So I'll be using this over here. So I will not write the plus sign over here. So it is yours. Let me pick this color. 1 plus cosine of 150. We have to use the unit circle to find the value of cosine of 150 degree. Cosine of 150 degree is yours negative radical 3 over 2. Negative radical 3 over 2. So let's write the next step over here. Next step will be like this. 1 minus radical 3 over 2 and divided by everything in 2 over here. Now I will do the same step over here as I've been doing in the previous problem. Alright, so this looks like this. So I will draw up a section over here. This will be for my scratch work over here. So it says over here 1 minus radical 3 over 2. I made an error over here, so let me fix the error. It was not like this. It was like this 1 minus radical 3 over 2. So how we'll do is we put a 1 over here. Okay, so I will multiply this with this over here. This 2 times 1 is 2 minus sine radical 3 over 2. So my next step will go over here. My next step will look like this. 2 minus radical 3 over 2 and this, there's a radical over here and this. Okay, so what will happen? The next step is I'm dividing fraction the same what I've been doing previously. See, I'm writing all the steps divided by 2, right? 1. This 2 is this one over here. So it is yours 2 minus radical 3 over 2 times 1 over 2. So this multiplies this multiplies this. So your final answer is this 2 minus radical 3 over 4. So this is your final answer for cosine of 75 degree. These are the practice problem which you should practice after going over those notes. So these are the problems you will solve today.